Hello everyone, welcome to yet another edition of Prime Time ZW. It is brought to you by Business Times. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. Today we are discussing the role of the private sector and its participation in economic development. To help me do that, I am joined by none other than the current Chief Executive Officer of the CEO Africa Roundtable, Kipson Gundani. He has a wealth of experience in private sector, having worked at the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, by Zimbabwe. He also sits on various technical committees. Kipson, it is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Mkuma Farai.
Fantastic. There are so many things that we could talk about, and we've talked about in the past.
Sure.
Because of time, I want to get straight to some of the key issues that, we want to get into. Number one, let's talk about currency, because I've spoken to you several times about this, and there seems to be a newfound optimism around the currency, the stability that we've seen over the last few months. From where you are sitting, are you confident now that we finally got the formula correct and the ZiG will deliver?
Thank you, Farai. To some extent, yes. We see a stable ZiG, but we also see a ZiG that is not widely used. The economy is still very much entrenched in dollarization. 83% of the transactions and even the bank deposits are US dollars. Meaning to say the ZiG is only accounting for less than 20% of the volume of transactions that are happening in this country, despite the fact that it is now preserving its value. So the $1 million question is, what would be the scenario if it was the reverse? If 80% of the transactions were ZiG and 20%, would the ZiG still maintain the same stability and value? And that is yet to be tested. Why? Because the financial authorities or the monetary authorities have been drip feeding the market of ZiG. We have not had adequate supply. So when anything anyhow is supplied in a drip format, in small amounts, it's bound to create some form of value.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we see some semblance of stability, but this is not tested stability. I think times will tell if we have really struck the right chord at this moment.
All right. Something else I want to very quickly pick up with you on before we get into the main point of discussion today is SMP. We've recently agreed with the IMF that we'll be on a staff-monitored program.
Sure.
Is that cause for celebration?
The beauty of SMPs is that it allows our national policymakers to have their policies tested by a third party, which is the IMF. So it can be a confidence booster because it takes courage to subject your own policy for review by third parties. So that's a good thing to do. The tragedy of the SMP is that in the history of SMPs in this country, we have never achieved the benchmarks and all. Of course, there are so many reasons attributed to it, some natural phenomena, drought and all those kind of things, but all the same, we have not delivered. But however, this is a good thing to have as a country, because it allows our policies to be subjected to scrutiny by multilateral institutions, and also we can draw various lessons from that.
When we talk about those national policies, to what extent is the private sector, organizations such as yourselves, engaged or consulted in coming up with those policies?
So Zim is one country that has got a well-organized private sector. If you look at the number of BMOs and how effective are they when it comes to policy inputting. But remember, we are not policymakers, we are policy influencers. So what we can only do is to input and try to influence the policy that we so desire as the private sector. And I think the platform has been there. One thing about this current Zim government is that it is very much engaging when it comes to private sector. If you talk with the Minister of Industry, we have got periodic meetings that we do even up to the minister's level to try and shape policy. Same applies to the Treasury and all. The RBZ has also been very much consultative in that regard. So an opportunity to input into policy has really been given to private sector without any doubt. And certainly there are certain pockets where we've really made scores. Actually, if you look at the Presidential Doing Business Reform Initiative, where they are reducing regulation costs in the economy across several sectors, I think the private sector was hugely involved in that regard. And also, if you look at the famous 2030 de-dollarization deadline, yes, we might not agree in certain languages and so forth, but the climb down was really also emanating from the pressure and policy influence from the private sector. So I think, to a large extent, there's a platform where we can really have a policy game and try to influence policy.
In the past, there's been some criticism about policy inconsistency in this country. Do you think now we are seeing a semblance of sustained or consistent policy?
Yes, I think the government has really taken heed of that. And we no longer see very abrupt policy changes. It's not zero, but at least the environment is improving. Because if you compare to the yester periods, you could wake up with a policy change overnight, and that tends to shock the economy. And when any system is shocked, it reacts, and when you react, you don't know, some people run away. So, anything can happen. But right now, I think there is a semblance of policy predictability. We kind of tell what to expect next. Though there is very little room to change anything at the moment. Yeah.
One of the policy areas that perhaps there hasn't been much movement on, and I know, talking to different people in the private sector, they are saying the issue of bank rates.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? There's a school of thought that says let's maintain them where they are until we get to certain conditions precedent or certain things in the future. What's your take?
You mean the policy rates?
Policy rates, yes.
Okay. I'm one guy who has always argued that this is too high. All right, but there are people who also argue, let's say, if a cautious approach, let's not have a big bang approach. I'm not for that school of thought, because I've always argued to say, if the RBZ is true to its meaning, that this currency has stabilized, why are we not just reducing the rates? Because keeping them that high, why cautious about things that you are confident about? It means you are not confident about the stability yourself. Right. So I've been arguing that does not support any productive borrowing.
We have a history, though. Maybe their caution is born out of the fact that we've seen in the past speculative borrowing and those sort of unscrupulous practices.
Yeah, but those things will die down because you have guaranteed stability. You show us the gold reserves and all those kind of things. You tell us you can defend this currency against any form of attack and all those kind of things. Because this downside of not reducing those policy rates is dire. There is no productive sector that can borrow at those high rates. Okay, it does not support. So what are we doing? You are dwarfing the economy. You are raping the economy. Okay, and that doesn't support any sustainable growth. So we need, actually, if they do not want to do a big bang approach, why can't we have at least there should be some movement. We cannot stick so high. There should be some gradual movement towards coming to the right levels of rates.
Or perhaps, making them sort of tailored to say for this particular agriculture, this is your rate, or mining, and maybe.
Yeah, but that creates another challenge, because
some animals are more equal than others.
I'll become a farmer
on paper,
and and then it creates all those kind of things. So I can become a farmer, borrow, then lend, and make a margin out of it. Sure. And
Okay. Now I want to shift my focus a bit. I mean, we've obviously spoken about the policy environments, the issues where you think, obviously, we are seeing success. before we started this program, we were talking about the environment itself and how we view it. Certainly, what we are hearing, the statistics from the officials are very optimistic, very positive.
Sure.
Do you agree with that?
At the beginning of the year, I agreed big time, and we were right on course to achieve that. But right now, there's an elephant in the room, which authorities really need to deal with it. I don't know why they don't see the catastrophe, especially on the cost of doing business, emanating from one key resource, which is the fuel cost. Okay, fuel is a universal input into our everyday lives. So small changes in the costs of fuel have got a multiplier effect on the overall cost of doing business in the marketplace. And it's something, that's one area where the government really needs to come in and subsidize to reduce the cost of doing fuel in this particular country. In some instances, they may not even need to subsidize anything. They just need to decrease some of the levies associated with that precious liquid that we all need to survive. So this is really pushing the cost of doing business in this country. And if we are not careful, it will generate into a slowing down of the economy, hence threatening otherwise noble figures that were put forward at the beginning of the year.
It's a tough situation that the government finds itself in, and I sympathize with them because on one hand, they need revenue, and this is the one place where, as you said, it's universal. So this is the one way where they can catch everyone. So how do you balance that?
I've heard that argument before.
How do you balance that?
That the government needs revenue.
Yes.
But for me, this is really shooting yourself in the foot, because you need to nurture the hen that lays the golden egg. If the economy slows down, it means in aggregate terms, national output slows down. And government revenue is a function of national outcome. So naturally, you are going to lose anyway. So what you rather do is to make sure that you and me produce efficiently at the least cost possible. As we grow our output, then we share that particular cake. That is the tried and tested model of progressive economies. Right. I don't therefore take all you have because I need it. I need to nurture you grow as corporate citizens at the least cost doing business environment, so that when you grow and produce more, I then tax you more. To me, it's a win-win scenario, and that's what progressive governments do. After all, just run a comparative analysis between Zim and other economies that surround us and pick one commodity, the fuel cost. It tells you a story that there is some peculiar anomaly when it comes to fuel pricing in Zimbabwe.
The point you make about grow nature, national output also speaks to another challenge or another elephant in the room that people talk about, and that is the informalization of our economy. That some of these progressive policies cannot be implemented because of the nature of our informality.
Sure, true. But we also need to appreciate how this informalization came into being and not risk perpetuating informalization. Okay? It's one thing to sit here and cry about informalization. And it's another thing to continue to do things that will lead to more and deeper informalization.
True.
So, with the current set of things, if the formal doing business environment continues to choke me, the natural instinct is to look for alternative means to survive. And those alternative means are readily available in the informal setup. So let's not entrench informalization by fearing so much to lose as the national treasury. My argument has always been, make doing business formally as easy as possible. All right? So that even those that are in the informal setup see the need to formalize. Yeah, it's an economic decision. Those people, they did not wake up informal. They become informal because of a certain economic phenomena that existed at that point of time. So reversing informalization amounts to cease doing things that led to informalization.
To that informalization in the first place.
Yeah.
Indeed. I think the whole issue of informalization is a discussion that can be the
Yeah.
content of an entire
True.
program, but because of the limitations of time, I want to move this discussion on. Technology, AI, all these are things that we hear being talked about that are emerging globally. Some see them as threats, some see them as opportunities. Within Zimbabwe, what is our view on this, and are we really prepared for these things that are coming towards us?
Yeah, I still remember talking to Minister Mavetera at some point when they launched their AI strategy and all kind of things. The beauty is that we're having a discussion about this at the right level. So that gives us a bit of comfort that people are conscious that we are living in this age and we need to do something about it. However, this is not only a challenge peculiar to Zimbabwe, but most of the developing world. Really embracing AI to its full strength requires huge investments, especially in things like energy, because you need huge data centers to be able to do that. We do not have that as a country and all those kind of things. So I think the Africa in general will be a passive participant in this AI revolution because of lack of capability enhancement to really be forerunners when it comes to artificial intelligence and really embracing technology. And this is something which requires probably a radical shift at the highest level to really invest in key infrastructure that puts our continent on a growth pedestal to be able to embrace and be a leader in some of these things. You wonder why most innovators be Africans, but they've really pushed their innovations outside Africa. It's because we lack that basic infrastructure. We lack that basic enabling environment. So this is our real threat in this regard. And also, if you look at universities, where one would ordinarily think they should be the hub to nurture these things, most of the universities, they struggle financially. Most of the universities also, they've got a very weak link to commercialize whatever innovations they are doing at the institutions. So at some point, we need a deliberate approach to be able to nurture those innovations to become fully fledged entities with the serious support system to grow and nurture them. So I think, yes, we are talking about the good. It shows that we are conscious of it, and it gives us a relief to say at some point we really struck the right chord. But I think we really suffer from the much needed infrastructural base to drive this.
There's often talk about a disconnect between tertiary institutions and private sector, which is where you sit. Do you agree with that? Because we see innovation hubs in universities, but we also hear that the graduates that are being churned out aren't fit for purpose.
We had a huge debate in VicForce during our Zim Police Roundtable because there was the Professor Mapfumo, the UZ Vice Chancellor, Professor Mzudziwa, the MSU, and the industry CEOs. And this was one of our heated discussions. But I could see both parties getting in a defensive mode, which is challenge number one. Because to overcome this, we really need to come on the same table and agree that we are not perfect. Either side. Then find a common solution to it. I'm a CEO, and I do hire these graduates here and again, and I can tell you that it's a disaster.
How so?
You get people that cannot do simple things. You get people that perhaps have got the hard knowledge, but they lack the soft starch. And those guys are unemployable. So employability is an issue when it comes to the recent graduates. We had thought the 1 year of attachment bridges that gap, but we are not seeing the results. However, this cannot be applied universally. There are still brilliant minds that are still coming from our universities. And I think the industry should not just pour the entire blame on the institutions. I think, but for me, that presents an opportunity for people that are practitioners in the industry to go to universities and also offer tutorials.
Indeed.
Okay.
I think that's one way.
And yes, and offer tutorials and even help shape the curricula depending on the current industry needs. Curricula is not meant to be static, right? Because things change. So I think the industry also is not utilizing the opportunity. I heard Professor Mafumo saying, "Come, we'll give you the opportunity." They have a term that they use. I've forgotten the term. Or for people who are coming from the industry, they've given them a certain academic term. I've forgotten the term, but I'm saying this is an opportunity to do so. So yes, this is an issue which needs to be dealt with, but holistically, by bringing both parties on the table and reshape the curricula, and also have the industry actively involved in molding the graduates that we all want.
Kipson, I want to pick your brains about one other thing. I mean, you are CEO Africa Roundtable, and I know that your discussions, your forums have also gone beyond Zimbabwe's borders. You're looking at a regional, thrust. We again hear talk of need to boost intra-Africa trade, Africa consolidated free trade area, all those sort of discussions. Are we ready? Are we equipped as Africa to say, look, will these things work? I think is more simple and direct way.
Farai, I've come to a point to think that Africa may never be ready on an integrated market. The architecture is there. Brilliant. All right? Even if you look at SACU down here, that's probably the oldest customs union you can ever think of in the world. So the architecture has always been there. Our biggest undoing is Africa. We have not really abolished our colonial commercial roots. Okay. That's why intra-Africa trade is so small, but trade with the rest of the world booms. This is not accidental. It's also synonymous with the architecture for economies. We are primary producers, right? If I produce my lithium and country X with my neighbor also produces the same lithium, there's no scope for trade. Scope for trade emanates when we build regional value chains, where I produce component A of product X and you produce component B of product Y, and country Z assembles to make the particular X. Then we are talking. So the issue lies in really building regional value chains. But it is difficult to build these regional value chains. Why? Because all our output goes to our colonial masters in China. I get what I'm saying. So this is why I liked the industrialization stance by SADC at some point in time. And they seem to have abandoned that. But I thought they'd struck the right chord there. That if we begin to think industrialization, then trade later, then we have struck the right chord. Because what do you trade if you don't produce? We have to produce first, then we trade. It is key that we do that.
And industrialization, I think, also in the thrust that you've spoken about, where we are not all producing the same thing.
Because
we don't have anyone to sell to.
Yes, that's another. That's the thing. Then the second thing is trade. To boost really intra-Africa trade, we need strong institutions. So what powers to our regional blocks, SADC, COMESA, now the Continental Free Trade Area, or even the AU, have in terms of enforcing trade and dealing with all the barriers to trade? And in most cases, they are not even tariffs. They are non-tariff barriers to trade. It is very difficult to do trade in... I actually want to go to Nigeria this coming July. I've got a nightmare in getting the visa. All right? I'm going to UK again but I can get my visa so easily. I get 100%. So I think these are some of the things that we really need to be serious about as Africa. If we are true that we really need to boost our intra-Africa trade, it's very difficult to do business with a fellow African country.
The concern, though, or the observation is that we know what the problem is. We talk about it constantly and raise it, but nothing's being done about it.
So then the question is, so where does it start from? So this is a leadership issue. Okay, I think somebody is to rise above everybody and say, like what Kwame Nkrumah tried to do in 1963. Unfortunately, very few listen to him. But I think somebody has to rise above everybody and say, guys, we are kidding. We need to do this.
Fantastic. One final question. Obviously, when we began, I asked you about whether the stability we are seeing, your confidence on it. Just looking forward ahead now, you've obviously sat in and convened quite a lot of forums where you look at what are the key priorities. If we were to say over the next 3 to 5 years, for Zimbabwe, this is what needs to be done, what is the outlook as a parting shot?
So for Zim, I think enough has been said now. We now need to grow as a country. We've got some semblance of stability. So we have managed to stabilize the economy, at least to some considerable degree. So the next is to grow. But to grow, not only grow, but to grow fast and sustainably.
Yeah.
Right. So what would be the priorities for me in terms of Zimbabwe? The first thing, which I think the government really appreciated, is we need to be able to feed ourselves as a country. We don't need to talk about grain imports as a country. We don't need to talk about food imports as a country. The starting point is let's feed ourselves. You find that we have a huge effect on our current account balance. And that will obviously aid growth. That will be the starting point to me. How to do that? You obviously need to reinvest in the agric value chain. Yes, the government is doing wonders. We are seeing the results, but more can still be done. Secondly, I'm happy that manufacturing is now up there as one of the leading contributors to GDP. That's a sign of real growth. Because the manufacturing, in other languages, we call it the real sector. That's the sector where things are produced. Yeah. So what we need to do is to nurture that by dealing with the threats to manufacturing. We have got 2 serious threats to manufacturing. One is energy supply. The second is the access to borrowing, access to money, which we have talked about before. Yes. We need to deal with those 2 things. Because manufacturing cannot really survive without access to working capital. You need working capital. When you've got a shortage, I need to walk into my bank and get a facility to bridge that particular shortage so that production continues to go. So we really need to take manufacturing seriously. Actually, there's also a school of thought which says manufacturing creates more jobs than the primary industry. And sometimes the ratio was 1:6. For every job that is created in the extractive industry, if we pursue the value chains, it generates 6 jobs in the manufacturing sector. So we need to take manufacturing seriously. Number 3, the most powerful tool that governments have to stimulate economic growth is its procurement. Okay? So the government needs to deliberately prioritize local procurement. By local procurement, I don't mean procuring from Farai Mwakutuya boss Zimbabwe. I mean procuring locally produced goods. Yep. That is a powerful tool that the government can use to stimulate local production and really empower its domestic corporate citizens in that regard. Then lastly is to continue with the right path and deal with the one serious threat to this stability, which is monetary expansion. They've put monetary expansion in the bud, but if they make that loose at any given point in time, all the stability we are talking about will be gone overnight. We are where we are because these guys have put a cap. They've screwed the tap on monetary expansion than the previous episodes.
Fantastic. Well, because of time, we must end the discussion here, but I want to thank you so much, Kipson, for coming through.
Pleasure, my brother.
And we look forward to having you back. That does it for this edition of Prime Time ZW. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. Be sure to join me again next time. In the meantime, engage with us on our various digital and social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you. Bye-bye.